Okay. Okay, yesterday I discussed Freud's theory of personality development. And I discussed the difference between the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. Do you have any questions?
Yes, doctor, if you please.
Okay, go on.
Doctor, yesterday we've talked about the soliloquies, and you've mentioned that the function of soliloquy is similar to the function of the narrator, which I really understood that the function of the role of the character on the stage is the same role of the narrator. Am I right? This point definitely. Concerning the soliloquy, we said that means of understanding the feelings and thoughts. You mentioned here the final idea. In the final soliloquy, Macbeth explicates his own philosophy of life in general. Here, if you please, Doctor, I need some clarification in this point, definitely.
Okay. I said, as you have already mentioned, that through the soliloquy, the character expresses his or her thoughts and feelings. And in this way, the function of the soliloquy is similar to the function of the narrator. Okay? So in the novel, the narrator gives us access to the thoughts of all of his or some of his characters. Okay? And sometimes he doesn't give us access to their thoughts and ideas. Okay? So the narrator who knows nothing about the internal lives of his characters is a fly on walls narrator. So he reports the actions of his characters. Okay? Now, through the soliloquy, now in the play we don't have a narrator. Okay? So we have characters acting on stage, and the characters express their own ideas and feelings in asides and in soliloquy. So an aside means that the character moves a little bit away from the other characters to express his or her feelings, and we will come across many asides in Macbeth. So in both cases, i.e. in the case of the aside or the soliloquy, both are the same in fact. The character allows the audience to know how he or she thinks and feels. Okay, so that's why I said the soliloquy is similar to the role of the narrator. Okay, so we don't have a narrator in the play to report the thoughts of the characters. So in this case, the playwright gives the character the chance to express his or her thoughts and feelings. Okay. Now, in the novel, sometimes the narrator gives the characters the freedom to express themselves, their own ideas. So in this case, sometimes they express themselves through the dialogues that we have in novels. Sometimes the narrator doesn't give the characters the chance to express themselves. So he expresses their thoughts and their feelings by himself.
Yes, thanks, Doctor.
Is it clear now? So we can't say that the soliloquy is a narrator himself. The function of the soliloquy is similar to the function of the narrator, especially the omniscient narrator, i.e. the narrator who knows about the internal lives of his characters. Okay, any more questions?
Thanks, Doctor.
Not at all.
Yes, doctor, I have a question.
Okay, go on.
The tragic flaw here is his ambition. Can be explained?
Okay. We know that Macbeth is an ambitious character, and he wants to be the king. So this is the literal level of the play. So if we take the plot of the play at its literal level, we realize that Macbeth is a noble man who has the ambition of becoming the king of Scotland. Now, at the philosophical level, i.e. at the symbolic or metaphorical level, Macbeth's tragic flaw is that he valorizes, okay, he valorizes, V-A-L-O-R-I-Z-E-S, he valorizes the imagination over reason. Okay, so the witches are supernatural beings, so they are not real human beings. So that's why they are associated with the imagination. And I will comment on this when I read the part during which the three witches meet Macbeth and Banquo. And Banquo says, he addresses them saying, are you alive or the product of imagination? Okay? And they disappear into the air. So this is a suggestion that the witches are the product of imagination, or they are associated with the imagination. So here Macbeth trusts the imagination and stops to think in a wise way. Okay, so this is his tragic flaw, and the fact that he believes in the imagination, he starts to act as an animal. Okay, so Macbeth is becomes aware of the id, and the id associates man's behavior with the behavior of the animal. Okay, and we should know that according to philosophy, the imagination is a faculty that man shares with the animals. Okay, so this is his tragic flaw that leads to his destruction at the end of the play. Okay, and even his wife becomes an aggressive woman who wants to be stripped of her human nature. She wants to be stripped of her femininity, and femininity is associated with tenderness, with love. Okay, so Lady Macbeth wants to kill the king, so she wants the supernatural beings, she calls on supernatural beings to come and unsex her, i.e. to deprive her of her feminine nature so that she will be able to kill the king. Is it clear?
Yes, doctor.
Any more questions? Okay, so back to Freud's philosophy of personality development. So I said last time, the ego establishes a balance between the id and the superego. Okay? Because if man's life is controlled by the id, he will become aggressive, and if his life is controlled by the superego, he will become moralistic and judgmental, i.e. he will become idealistic. Okay? And in both cases, man becomes psychologically disturbed. Okay? So he suffers from psychological disturbances. So that's why the ego strikes a balance between the id and the superego. Now, according to Freud, the id controls man's life during the first 3 years of his life. Okay? So the child is born with the id, and the id is the driving force of man's life. Okay? So when the ego emerges or starts to emerge at age 3, the id becomes silent. Okay? So in this sense, the id is suppressed in the unconscious. Okay? So when we grow up and have the reality principle, which is the ego, and have the superego, which includes the morals and the ethics and the codes of behavior that we acquire from society, the id is suppressed in the unconscious. So we no longer need to be controlled by the id. Okay? So here the function of the superego, according to Freud, the function of the superego is to control, to keep in check the drives of the id. Okay? So the role of the superego is to keep the drives of to keep in check the drives of the id. Okay? And the superego is associated, as I said at the end of the session yesterday, is associated with the conscience, C-O-N-S-C-I-E-N-C-E. It means the dhamir in Arabic. And it is associated with remorse. Okay? So when the superego tells man about the evil nature of something that he may be committed, it means that the superego is active, the conscience is active. When he suffers as a result of his evil deeds, it means that he has a sense of remorse. Okay? Now, in the play, both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are the victims of the id and the superego. So at the very beginning, Macbeth's superego is active. It tries to draw his attention to the crime that he's going to commit. Later on, he becomes totally controlled by the id. So that's why he becomes, of course, he becomes an animal. Lady Macbeth, at the beginning of the play, decides to do away with her nature as a woman and pushes the id to the fore, i.e., it allows the id to control her life. So till the end, she is controlled by the id. At the end, she becomes totally sick because the superego draws her attention to her crimes. So she acts her crimes in her sleep, and then she kills herself. And Macbeth is controlled by the id till the very end. And the id leads to his own destruction. Okay? So this is the philosophy of Freud. So the id is suppressed in the unconscious according to Freud. Okay, so when we behave according to the dictates of the ego, the id is totally suppressed, hidden in the unconscious. Okay, so it doesn't have power, it doesn't have the force to control our lives. And I said the ego is the social identity of man, i.e. the ego leads us to behave in a way that is accepted by the society. Okay, so we behave according to the dictates of the society, and those who are taking the mythology course will remember the persona that Carl Jung came up with, persona, P-E-R-S-O-N-A. So according to Carl Jung, persona, or the persona, is the social identity of man. It is like the mask. Okay? So the mask that hides, let's say, the evil part of man's character. So the persona is the social identity of man. So here it is similar to the ego that Freud deals with. And since not all of you are taking the mythology course, you should know that Carl Jung was one of the students of Freud, and he broke with Freud because he disagreed with him on certain issues. Okay? Now, for example, Freud believes that the libido, 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 is totally sexual. Okay? So the libido is the driving force of our life, according to Freud. It is the driving force of our life, and the libido is associated with the sexual life of man. Okay? Now, Carl Jung believes that the libido is not totally sexual, it is psychic, i.e. it is related to the psychic life of man. This is one point of difference between Freud and Carl Jung. Jung, you have to spell it as Jung. So the name is not an English name. So you can't say Jung or Jung. Jung. Okay? So it is a German name. Psychic, Psychic. Psychic. Okay? So Freud interprets man's behavior in terms of sex. Carl Jung doesn't agree with him on this issue. That's why Carl Jung broke with his master. Okay, so that's why Freud deals with what we call psychosexual stages of personality development. And in this case, he discusses 5 stages, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so he associates the personality of the development of man's personality with sexual development. So he deals with the oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage, latency stage, and what have you. So these stages are related to the sexual development of the child, and they are also related to the development of his personality. I'm not going to discuss these psychological issues that Freud raised in his philosophy. Okay, so I will only stick or discuss the parts that are related to Macbeth. Okay, so Freud's philosophy is too broad. So in this case, we take from his philosophy only the elements that apply to Macbeth the play, I mean. Okay, so we have the id, the ego, the superego, and the issue of the conscious and the unconscious. Okay, so the rest is not that necessary. Okay, so this is how you should choose the elements of methodology when you write, let's say, a research paper or an MA thesis, or when you write the exam. Okay, so you choose the elements of the methodology that apply to the text that you are studying. Okay, do you have any questions?
No, clear, Doctor.
Okay, so I will begin in the beginning, as Byron says, the very beginning of the play. Okay, Act 1, Scene 1, the very beginning. So the play opens with the 3 witches. Okay, Act 1, Scene 1, an open place, thunder and lightning, enter 3 witches. Okay, so the atmosphere is an atmosphere of thunder and lightning, and the thunder and the lightning has been raised by the witches themselves. So the witches are evil creatures. The witches are evil creatures. They raise thunder, they raise lightning, they raise storms, so they are associated with evil. And according to the literature of the past, the witches become active at night. Okay, so night is associated with darkness. Darkness is associated with evil. So that's why the witches become active at night. Now they appear on stage before they meet Macbeth and Banquo on the heath. First witch. When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? Second witch. When the hurly-burly is done, i.e. when the battle is done. When the battle is lost and won. So they will meet at the end of the war. Third witch, that will be ere the set of sun. First witch, where the place. Second witch, upon the heath. Third witch, there to meet with Macbeth. First witch, I come, grey molken. This is the name of a cat. And it is claimed that witches raise cats. Okay, they keep cats because they assist them in their ceremonies. All paddock calls anon, fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. So I want to comment on this couplet. Fair is foul and foul is fair, i.e. good is evil and evil is good, hover through the fog and filthy air. Okay? So the atmosphere is an atmosphere of fog and mist. So the atmosphere is an atmosphere of uncertainty. The atmosphere is an atmosphere of uncertainty. Okay? So nothing is clear. And this statement of the witches foreshadows what will happen later on in the play. So the statement of the witches foreshadows the real character of Macbeth. So Macbeth is fair and foul is fair. So Macbeth appears to be a noble person who has a noble character. He is a soldier, a captain who is loyal to the king and faithful to the cause of the nation. So this is the social identity of Macbeth. Okay? So this is the mask that Macbeth puts on. Okay? So this is it. This is the ego. This is the persona that Macbeth puts on. So he hides his it, i.e. his evil nature, behind the mask of his noble nature. Okay? So this is it. Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. And later on, the king commands on the true nature of the Thane of Cawdor, the traitor who has aligned himself with the enemies of the king. So he says, later on we will read this, he says, if there is an art to read man's mind. Okay, so it means that the king has been deceived by the good character of the Thane of Cawdor. Okay, so the Thane of Cawdor appears to be loyal, faithful, but deep down he is evil. So that's why he has aligned himself with the enemies of the king. Aligned, A-L-I-G-N-E-D. Aligned, A-L-I-G-N-E-D. Okay, so he has taken sides with the enemy. Okay, then the following page, Act 1, Scene 2, a camp near Forest. So Forest is the city of the king. So it is the place where the castle of the king exists. Alarm within, enter King Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbin, Lennox, with attendants meeting a bleeding captain. So a bleeding captain comes from the war. So the king addresses the lords. To the lords, what bloody man is that? He can report as seemeth. This means as seems. And in early modern English, the simple present tense takes ETH with the third person singular. So the ETH is similar to the S. And the simple present with the second person singular takes EST. So if I talk to you, I say, to one of you, I say, you see mist. Okay? So he can report as seemeth by his plight the revolt, the newest state. Malcolm, this is the sergeant who, like a good hardy soldier, fought against my captivity. To the soldier, hail, brave friend, say to the king the knowledge of the broil, i.e. the knowledge of the battle, as thou didst leave it. Okay, captain. So I want to read the part that the captain says and I want to comment on it. Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel. So MacDonald is a Scottish person fighting with the enemy against the king. Okay? So the enemy of the king is the king of Norway, i.e. the Norwegians are waging a war against the Scottish. And MacDonald, here the W is silent, you don't need to pronounce it. Okay, so MacDonald is one of the Scottish traitors who have aligned themselves with the Norwegian enemy. So the merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him, from the western isles of Cairns and gallow glasses is supplied. And fortune, on his damned quarrel smiling, showed like a rebel's whore, but all's too weak for brave Macbeth. Well, he deserves that name, disdaining fortune, with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution, like valor's minion, carved out his passage, till he faced the slave, which never shook hands, nor bade farewell to him, till Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. The electricity went off.
It's not a
Don't worry.
problem.
Okay, go on. You have a question?
No.
Okay. Okay. For brave Macbeth, while he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution like valor's minion, carved out his passage till he faced the slave which never shook hands, nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps, and fixed his head upon our battlements. Okay? So Macbeth kills the traitor MacDonald, and then the captain says, Duncan, O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman, captain, and once the sun begins his reflection, shipwrecking storms and direful thunders break. So from that spring, whence comfort seemed to come, discomfort swells. Again, this is an emphasis on the idea that appearance doesn't reflect reality. Okay? So that's why he says, once the sun begins his reflection, i.e. where the sun rises, ship-racking storms and thunders break. Okay? So here good and evil are mixed together. Okay? Then I will skip a certain part. I want to comment on how Macbeth is presented. Okay? So Mark, King of Scotland, Mark, no sooner justice had with valor armed, compelled the skipping curs to trust their heels, but the Norwegian lord, surveying vantage with furbished arms and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault. Duncan, dismayed not this our captains, Macbeth and Banquo. Captain, yes, as sparrows, eagles, or the hare, the lion. If I say sus, I must report they were as cannons overcharged with double cracks, so they doubly redoubled strokes upon the foe, except they meant to bathe in reeking wounds or memorize another Golgotha. Okay? So here the two armies are presented or described as two strong armies. Okay? So the captain here inflates, write it down, inflates, i.e. exaggerates. He inflates the army of the enemy in order to deflate it. Deflate. D-E-F-L-A-T-E. Okay? So inflate means to exaggerate. Okay? So here the captain exaggerates the strength of the enemy to deflate the enemy, i.e. to show that although the enemy is very strong, the enemy is defeated by Macbeth and his army. And this is in fact a tradition that we have in epic literature. Okay? So in epic or in epics in general, the enemy is inflated, his strength is exaggerated, so that the epic hero will be glorified and inflated. Okay? So the epic hero who destroys a strong and undefeatable enemy is in an indirect way praised as a great hero. So here the captain praises the strength of Macbeth and Banquo as he praises or exaggerates the strength of the enemy. So the enemy is destroyed by these two captains. So this is an epic style. Okay? Then the captain says, as he answers Duncan's question, dismayed not this our captains Macbeth and Banquo? Captain, yes, as sparrows, eagles. So here he compares the enemy, i.e. the soldiers, fighting on the part of the enemy, he describes them as sparrows, and he describes the Scottish army or soldiers as eagles. Okay? So here he's poking fun at the enemy. That's why he says as sparrows, eagles, or the hare, i.e. the rabbit, the lion. If I say so, I must report they were as cannons overcharged with double cracks. Here he is referring to Macbeth and Banquo, and he compares them to cannons that are overcharged with explosives. So they doubly redoubled strokes upon the foe, except they meant to bathe in reeking wounds. I can or memorize another Golgotha I cannot tell. Now the Golgotha is the mountain where Jesus Christ was crucified. Okay? The Golgotha is the mountain where Jesus Christ was crucified. Okay? And we know that the Golgotha, or the whole action that took place on the Golgotha, is symbolic of purging or washing away the original sin of man. Okay? I.e., it is a means of washing away evil. Okay? So here the captain is saying that Macbeth and Banquo may be commemorating, celebrating another Golgotha. So the enemy here is compared to an evil, to a sin, and Macbeth and Banquo are washing away this sin or this evil. Okay? So he describes them using religious imagery. Okay? So the religious imagery that emphasizes the purging of sin highlights Macbeth and Banquo's attempt at defending the nation against an inimical force. Okay? It highlights Macbeth and Banquo's attempt at defending the nation against an inimical force. Inimical, I-M-I-C-A-L. Okay? So they are defending the nation against an enemy. So this battle highlights the nationalist spirit of Macbeth and Banquo. And the emphasis here is on Macbeth, because Macbeth is going to change from a highly nationalist character to an enemy of the state. Of course, he will become an enemy of the state. Okay? So Macbeth is presented as a highly nationalist figure who is the king, who is loyal to the crown or to the king, and defends the nation, the country, against its enemy. Okay? So Duncan, I will skip some lines. I will skip Duncan, then enter Ross and Angus. Line 50. Okay, Ross, God save the king. Duncan, whence camest thou? I.e., where do you come from? This is the meaning of whence. Where do you come from? And here he says came, he uses the past. So here it means, where did you come from? Okay? Whence camest thou, worthy Thane? Ross, from Fife. Okay? So Fife is a certain county in Scotland. And we will know later on that Macduff lives in Fife. From Fife, great king, where the Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold. So the Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold. So this is an emphasis on the great number of the Norwegian soldiers. So the Norwegian army is a great army. So that's why their banners are either flags, flout the sky and fan our people cold. Norway himself, i.e. the king of Norway himself, with terrible numbers, assisted by that most disloyal traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began a dismal conflict. Okay, and I referred to Cawdor last time. So Cawdor is one of the Scottish Thanes and he is a traitor. So that's why he will be killed later on, and Macbeth will be given the title of Thane of Cawdor as a reward for his deeds in the war. Till that, Bellona's bridegroom. Now Bellona is the Roman goddess of war. So here he describes Macbeth as the bridegroom of the goddess of war. Laughed in proof, confronted him with self-comparisons, point against point, rebellious arm against arm, curbing his lavish spirit, and to conclude, the victory fell on us. Again, here he is exaggerating the number of the Norwegian soldiers, and again he deflates the Norwegian army and the traitor Cawdor to highlight the strength of Macbeth. So far, this is the physical appearance of Macbeth, which is supposed to reflect his inner self, i.e. his soul. Okay? And according to the Renaissance, as I told you before, the body should be a reflection of the soul. So in this case, man is viewed as a well-integrated entity. Okay? So the body should be a reflection of the soul. But here Macbeth's outer physical appearance doesn't reflect his inner self. Okay? So again, this foreshadows the fact that Macbeth has been putting masks on to hide his id. Okay, so Act 2, 1, Scene 2. So the battle is over. Macbeth is coming back. I will skip Scene 3, it is not that important. Scene 2. Okay, I'm doing Scene 2. Yes, Scene 2, Scene 3. I will skip the first part of Scene 3, where the three witches meet and they prepare themselves to meet Macbeth and Banquo. So you may skip the first 37 lines of Act 1, Scene 3. Okay? So enter Macbeth and Banquo. Enter Macbeth and Banquo. Macbeth. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. Okay? So at the beginning of the scene, the stage direction reads a heath, thunder, again there is a storm, enter 3 witches. So that's why Macbeth says, so foul and fair a day I have not seen. Okay, so the day is so good and so bad. Okay, so it is good because they have won the war against the enemy, and it is bad because of the thunder. Okay, so here good and bad go hand in hand. Good and bad go hand in hand. And this is also, or this also foreshadows the real nature of Macbeth. So good and bad go hand in hand as far as Macbeth is concerned. Okay? So Banco says, how far is it called to Forest? Okay? So the Macbeth and Banco are going back to the castle of the king. He notices the witches. What are these? So withered and so wild in their attire, that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it. So withered, i.e. very old, ugly, and wild in their attire, i.e. their clothes, that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it. So the witches are not like human beings, okay, but they are on earth. He speaks to the witches. Live you, i.e. are you alive? Or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me, by each at once her chubby finger laying upon her skinny lips. You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. So they are women, but they have beards on their faces, on their chins. Okay? So he questions the real nature of these creatures. Okay, so according to him, they are not real. Macbeth, speak if you can. What are you? First witch, all hail Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. Okay, so the first witch hails him as Thane of Glamis. So this is the title that he already has. The second witch says, all hail Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. So the second witch addresses him as the Thane of Cawdor. So he is already Thane of Cawdor. Because in Act 1, Scene 2, the king appoints him Thane of Cawdor. So this is a truth. But Macbeth so far doesn't know that he has been appointed Thane of Cawdor. So he thinks that later on he will think that this is a prophecy that has come true. And the third which says, hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter. Banquo, turning to Macbeth, good sir, why do you start and seem to fear the things that do sound so fair? So Macbeth is affected by the statement of the witch. Okay? So that's why Banco says, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound fair? So when the third witch hails him, saying, hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter, so the character of Macbeth, his physical appearance changes. Okay? So he gets started, he is shocked. Okay? So he seems to fear what the witches are saying. So this means that the witches are striking a chord within Macbeth's character. You should spell chord with C-H-O-R-D. C-H-O-R-D. So the witches strike a chord within the character of Macbeth. Okay? So they bring to life the desire to become a king. So this means that deep down, Macbeth has the ambition to become a king. So this desire is suppressed in the unconscious. It is suppressed in the id. Okay? So the id is suppressed in the unconscious. So this means that the desire to become a king is already there inside Macbeth. Okay? And the witches unearth this desire, i.e. they bring this desire into life. Okay? Is it clear? Okay? So
Yes, Doctor.
psychologically
Yes.
speaking, i.e. from a Freud's point of view, Macbeth has suppressed the desire to become the king of Scotland in his unconscious. Okay, now the witches who are associated with evil, in fact the witches are associated with the id. Okay? This is my own reading of the witches. So according to me, the witches are the id of Macbeth that has been suppressed in the unconscious. Okay? Now the id comes to the surface. Okay? Now the id comes to life. Okay? So that's why I says the witches unearth the desire to become a king. Then he addresses the witches. To the witches, in the name of truth, are ye fantastical? Ye is the plural form of you. It is the plural form of you in early modern English. Okay? And it is a development of Middle English yea. In early Middle English, the Y was spelled with G, and the G was pronounced as a ya. Okay? And this ja was taken also from Old English. Okay? So the ye has developed from Old English into Middle English into early modern English. So it survived in early modern English as ye, and it is spelled with Y, not with G. Okay, I'm discussing this because some of you next year will choose literature as a major, and literature students are not going to study the history of the English language. Okay, so the history of English is not required of literature students. Only language students will study these linguistic issues next year. Okay? Are ye fantastical? Are you the product of imagination? Are you unreal? Or that indeed which outwardly you show? Are you real characters, creatures, or are you fantastical creatures? Okay, so this raises a doubt about the nature of the witches. And this makes the witches unreal characters, i.e. not real human beings. Okay? So later on, Banco will say that we may have eaten a certain kind of plant that makes man hallucinate. Okay? So this means that they may be imagining that they are meeting these creatures. So that's why I say that the witches are associated with the imagination. Okay? So they are not real characters. Are ye fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly ye show? My noble partner, you greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope, that he seems wrapped withal okay? So he seems wrapped withal, he is thinking about the prophecies that you have told Macbeth. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak them to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate. So in other words, Banco wants the witches to foretell his own future if they know or if they can foretell the future. Okay? So the third witch says to him, thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. Okay? So the witches prophesy that, prophesy, you have to spell it with S, it is the verb. Prophecy is the noun, it is spelled P-R-O-P-H-E-C-Y. So this is the noun. The verb is spelled with S, not with C. Prophesy. So this is how you should spell it. Okay, so the witches prophesy that Banco will not be a king, but he will be the father of many kings. Okay, so that's why later on Macbeth decides to kill Banco and his son Fleance. He wants to kill Fleance because according to the prophecy of the witches, Fleance will be a king and the father of many kings. So it means that Macbeth will never pass the crown on to his children. Macbeth, stay you imperfect speakers. He's addressing the witches. Tell me more. By Sinel's death, I know I am Thane of Glamis. So Sinel was the Thane of Glamis. He died, Macbeth became the Thane of Glamis. But how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, no more than to be Cawdor. Say, from whence you all this strange intelligence? Or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greetings? Speak, I charge you. So Macbeth wants the witches to tell him more. Okay? So he realizes that their message is imperfect. They don't talk in a good way that can be understood. So that's why he orders them to explain more. The witches vanish, they disappear. Banco says, the earth hath bubbles as the water has, and these are of them. Whither they are vanished, Macbeth into the earth, and what seemed corporal, i.e. what seemed bodies. Okay, corporal means corporeal, i.e. something that has a body, into the air, and what seemed corporal melted as breath into the wind, i.e. they disappeared. Okay, i.e. they, although they looked like creatures that have bodies, they disappeared into the wind. Would they had stayed. So this is a wish. Okay? Would they had stayed. So Macbeth wishes that the witches would have stayed with them. Okay? So this means that he is interested in the witches. And he wants the witches to tell him more things. Okay? So he wants to know more through the witches. So this is a witch. Okay? This is a wish. Okay? Would they had stayed. So this is a wish. And in grammar we know that the wish expresses something unreal. Okay? Blanco says, were such things here as we do speak about, or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner? Okay, so Banco raises doubts about the nature of the witches. So that's why he says, were such things here, i.e. were the witches really here, or did we eat the insane root that makes us lose our minds? Okay, so one man loses his mind. It means that did we take a certain kind of drug? And we know that we have different kinds of drug, right? We have marijuana, we have heroin, we have opium. Okay, so all of these are types of plants. And when man takes any of these drugs, he has a certain kind of state of mind. So he loses consciousness. He loses contact with the real world, right? And he gets in touch with a world that has nothing to do with our real world. So that's why people who take drugs go through a certain state of euphoria. Euphoria. E-U-P-H-O-R-I-A. Euphoria, a great state of happiness. Okay? And this takes place usually after man takes heroin. This is one of the effects of heroin, heroin. Okay? So this means that drugs lead us to lose contact with reality. So here Banco's statement means that are the witches real creatures, or have we taken a certain plan that leads us to lose our minds? So he realizes that they are not real creatures. They are not related to reason, to reality. They are the product of imagination. So that's why I come to the conclusion that the witches are the product of imagination. They are not real characters. And the moment Macbeth surrenders to his imagination, surrenders, S-U-R-R-E-N-D-E-R-S, the moment Macbeth surrenders to imagination, he becomes totally controlled by the it. Okay, so he switches off the function of the mind. So his life will no longer be controlled by reason and logic. Okay? And that's why he will become an animal later on. Is it clear?
Yes, doctor. It's clear.
Yes, doctor. Yes.
Okay, after the witches disappear, Ross and Angus meet Macbeth and Banquo on the heath, and they tell Macbeth that the king has appointed him Thane of Cawdor. Okay, I may skip one page, I think. Yes, it is one page in my edition. Okay, Ross, it is line 104. Okay, so Ross and Angus are the messengers of the king. So they have come to tell Macbeth that the king has honored him and has given him the title of Thane as a reward for his actions in the battle. Ross, and for an earnest of a greater honor, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which addition hail most worthy Thane, for it is thine. Banquo, what can the devil speak true? Okay, so Banquo here refers to the witches as devils. What can the devil speak true? Macbeth, the Thane of Cawdor, lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? Okay, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? Here we have the imagery of clothing, of clothes, of robes. Okay? Here we have the imagery of clothing. Okay? And the different or titles in the play are referred to clothes that we put on and take off. So that's why Macbeth says, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? I.e., why do you dress me in a robe that doesn't belong to me? So the title here is compared to a piece or to an article of clothing. Okay? And this foreshadows this statement of Macbeth foreshadows the borrowed robe that he will put on after he kills the king. Okay? So the title of the king is not a rightful title that belongs to Macbeth. So that's why it is referred to as a borrowed robe. The title of the king is not a rightful title that belongs to Macbeth. He has usurped this title. Usurped. U-S-U-R-P-E-D. Macbeth has usurped the title of the king, so that's why it is a borrowed title. And this is the significance of the clothing imagery in the play. Angus, who was the Thane, lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose Okay, so this means that the thane of Corder is not dead yet, but he will be executed for his treason. Whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he labored in his country's wrack, I know not, but treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him. Macbeth aside, again here, Macbeth is talking to himself. Okay, Macbeth is talking to himself. So whenever you have an aside, it means that the character is talking, but the other characters do not hear him. Okay, so only the audience can hear him. Okay, so in this case, Macbeth expresses his thoughts to the audience, so the other characters do not hear him. Aside, Glamis and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind. Okay, so here he is thinking of the prophecies of the witches. So that's why he says aside, Glamis, i.e. Thane of Glamis, and Thane of Cawdor. So here, Macbeth realizes that one of the prophecies of the witches has come true, although this is not a prophecy. He has been appointed Thane of Cawdor before the witches meet him. The greatest is behind. Here he is referring to the title of the king. Okay, so now he is thinking of the third prophecy. So he wants the third prophecy to come true. Taurus and Angus, thanks for your things. To Banco, do you not hope your children shall be kings? When those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them, Banco, that trusted home, might yet enkindle you unto the crown, besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence. Okay? So here, Banco realizes that the witches are the instruments of darkness, i.e. they are the instruments of evil. Okay? So here, Banco is saying that the witches are trifling with us to lead us to our own destruction. So they have told us truths so that we will believe them, and if we believe them, we will come to our own destruction. So according to Banco, the witches are sources of evil. They are the instruments of darkness. And one of the meanings of darkness is evil. And the witches, I told you, always do their tricks, their charms. They become active at night, i.e. during the darkness. Macbeth aside, again he is thinking about the prophecies of the witches. Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. Now he is thinking of becoming the king. Okay, so the two truths are the prologues, the introduction, i.e. they pave the way to the act of becoming the king. Okay, do you have a question? Do you have a question? Okay. Okay, I will read this part and then I will dismiss the class. Don't worry, because I have another class at 10:20. I will not detain you for long. Two truths are told as happy promotes to the swelling act of the imperial theme. To Ross and Angus, I thank you, gentlemen. Aside, this supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am fain of quarter. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image do unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastica. So he has started to think of killing the king. Shakes so my single state of man, that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. I will leave the discussion off at this point. Okay? So do you have any questions?
No, doctor. Thank you. Very clear.
Okay, we will meet I think next week. So if we have a class on Wednesday, we will have a class as usual. Okay?
Okay,
And
doctor.
all of you, yes.
So
Okay, do you have a
what if the online is cancelled?
No, we will go on teaching online, I think. There is no possibility of going back to university and having regular classes. Okay? So as long as we cannot meet at university, we will have online classes. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, not at all. And I think the university will send you a memo to tell you what will happen or what we will do in the future. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay, doctor.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for attending.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, doctor.